Hey everyone, it's Emily here, and today I am bringing you my monthly recommendations for the monthly recommendations group hosted by Kayla and Trina. I will link their channels and the Good News group down below and in the cards and all that fun stuff. And this month's theme is Monster Mash, and we are sharing our recommendations for books that feature monsters that you might think about during Halloween. Now, I am total urban fantasy paranormal trash. And I become more and more so as I get older. I don't know why, but I find these books super fun and awesome. And I also want to let you know that I'm also not a horror fan. I've learned there's definitely a difference between like paranormal, urban fantasy, and horror. So if you're not really a fan of major horror things that will keep you up in the middle of the night, afraid to turn off the light, these books hopefully won't do that for you. I really can't talk about paranormal and monsters and such without bringing up Anne Rice and Interview the Vampire and her Vampire Chronicles series. Now, each of her Vampire Chronicles are definitely more standalone books. They are more of like companion novels versus a series, but the first one is Interview with the Vampire, and I do recommend reading this one first, but really, you can read any of them in any order that you want because they do, for the most part, stand alone, and you know enough to be able to figure out what happened in the past without reading them in a certain order. But the first one is the classic Interview with the Vampire, and I personally feel like the modern vampire that we see a lot in pop culture today is inspired by this book. And so I just think that if you really like vampires, you need to read this book and read Anne Rice because she's like the queen. She's the queen of vampires. And also, she just turned like 75 this month, which is insane. Like, she's awesome. She's the queen. And then other vampire books are the Chicagoland vampires. I've been pushing this series all year long because I'm obsessed with it. I made a video talking about this whole series last week. I will link it up here for you so you can go watch it and learn more about Chicagoland vampires. But basically it is about this young woman named Marion. She is a grad student at the University of Chicago, and then one night she turned into a vampire. And this whole series basically covers her first year as a vampire, and I'm obsessed with it, and I need everyone to go read this series, so I have people to talk about it with. Now, this next vampire book, I really don't know my true feelings on it, but I felt weird talking about vampires without bringing up this series, and that is the Sookie Stackhouse series by Charlaine Harris. I loved this series when it first came out a few years ago. Like, I completely ate all of them up, and I will say that the series kind of went downhill after a while, but I still was really invested in the characters, and I still read and bought all of the books, and I'm not entirely sure how I would feel about it going back to reading it now. Maybe, like, I would still enjoy it. Maybe I wouldn't. I really don't know, but I still just feel like I should give a shout out to Sookie Stackhouse because I did really, really enjoy these books. Basically, it's about this young woman, Sookie. She is a waitress in Louisiana, and vampires have just kind of like come out into society, and we are getting used to the idea of vampires in the world, and she meets them, and also she can read people's minds. So it's kind of fun. Like, it's like a fun, fluffy series. And then for a different type of paranormal book, I recommend the Parasol Protectorate series by Gail Carriger. The first book is Soulless, and this is also more like steampunk, and it is Victorian England, and basically Alexia is a woman who doesn't have a soul. She is preternatural, and basically when she touches something supernatural, like, their powers are taken away, and it's awesome. And there's vampires and werewolves, and this really ridiculous, it's like, I read this series because I love the characters. Like, the plots, I usually don't really remember a whole lot of what happens in each book, but I love the characters, and I just love, like, it's super quirky and fun and ridiculous and silly, and the romance just makes me laugh, and it's awesome, and I just really had a lot of fun. So if you just want, like, some supernaturally type things with some steampunk and Victorian England and being silly and ridiculous, this is for you. If you want more of a focus on werewolves and shapeshifters, I recommend the Mercy Thompson series by Patricia Briggs. Mercy is a mechanic and her neighbor is a werewolf and she's fixing the Volkswagen of a vampire friend, and it's awesome. And she also has some supernaturalness to her as well. She's part Native American, and I just really enjoyed this series. I've read the first 4, I believe, and I'm just really, really enjoying it. I think it's really well done, and just, it makes me really happy, and I can't wait to move on and get further into this series. And this is also a favorite of one of my really close friends, and that was why I started to read it, and it's just been really fun. And usually I borrow all the books from her, although now I'm buying them all secondhand because I need them. Another urban fantasy that focuses a little bit more on the shapeshifter werewolf side of things is the Kate Daniel series by Illona Andrews. Instead of post-apocalyptic, it is a post-magic, and it is in Atlanta, and basically it's this world where, like, there's waves of magic that kind of take over, and it, like, takes out the power. Kate Daniels kind of works for a police, in a way, for Atlanta, and takes care of all of the messy magic things that happen that go wrong that nobody else wants to deal with. And there's also a shapeshifter lion, Karen, who is the actual best. And Kate also has some magic to her as well. She's not really a witch, but she does know magic, and there's a whole thing with that, which is really, really awesome. Another book, if you want to do something with witches, is one I just read recently, and that is Labryinth Lost. And this is, instead of witches, they are Brujas, and they live in Brooklyn, and this is a young adult urban fantasy, and it is highly inspired by Latin American culture, which I really, really found interesting and fascinating. It was definitely my favorite part of this book, and I actually read the author's note at the end of the book before I read the rest of the book, and it helped me really understand more of the culture and the inspiration for this story, and I thought it was really good. It's basically about this girl who is a Bruja, but she does not like her magic. She wants to get rid of her magic. And on the day of her death day party, she does something to try and get rid of her magic, and it ends up sending her whole family to the Labryinth, and she has to go and save them. And so it's kind of a magic urban fantasy, also meets like an Alice in Wonderland, because she's like traveling in this fantasy land with a bunch of things that she doesn't understand, trying to get her family back, and it's really cool. My next more witchy type of recommendation is Dead Witch Walking by Kim Harrison. This is the first book in the Hallows series, and this is another urban fantasy where it's kind of like an alternate universe where magic and all these things exist and everyone knows it exists. And I've only read the first book of this series, and so I kind of am recommending it to you all, but just know I've only read the first book. But I've heard the rest of the series is fantastic and really fun and really awesome. This is a series that takes place in Cincinnati, and Rachel Morgan is a witch, and she's also a bounty hunter, and she kind of goes off on her own and does her own thing, and she's partnered with a vampire and a pixie, and it was awesome. I just remember I really, really loved this book, and I plan on reading the next one this month. And of course, we'll talk about one of my favorite wizards, and that is Harry Dresden from the Dresden Files. Now, I all know I love Harry Potter too. So basically, Harry Potter and Harry Dresden, like, if you're a wizard and your name is Harry, basically, I'm a fan. But Harry Dresden, he lives in Chicago, and he is a wizard for hire. He puts himself in the Yellow Pages, and he just is like, I'm a wizard. I can find things and do things for you, and people hire him, even though half of his clients don't believe him that he's a wizard. They're just like, well, he helped me find my lost item, so that's cool. Although that's just the premise of the series, it definitely goes way farther into it. There's going to be like 20 books or something, and I'm all caught up on it, and I'm obsessed with the Dresden Files. And also, it's not just him being a wizard, but really, there is literally every single thing you could possibly think of, even things that you never would have thought of in this series. I mean, later in this series, he encounters a gruff, as in like the Billy Goat's gruff. It's freaking awesome, and it's also really funny. I love his sense of humor, and I just really love the Dresden Files, and there is not a release date for his next one yet, and I need it. I need it now. Like, right now, because I've been binging this 15-book series for the past year and a half, and now I just have this black hole of no Harry Dresden, and I need it filled. I need it. I need it right now. I need it! If you want more of a ghost story, I recommend Anna Dressed in Blood by Kendare. This is about a boy named Cass. He's a teenager, but he's also a ghost hunter, and he kind of gets rid of evil spirits and ghosts and sends them back to wherever they go, so that way they don't harm anyone anymore. And his mom is also a kitchen witch, and this book is definitely a little bit more on the gory horror side, but I still really, really enjoyed it. And I know there's a sequel to it, I just haven't read it yet, but I really, really love this book. If you like zombies, I recommend Warm Bodies by Issac Marion. I push this book all the time. I push it in like almost every Monthly Rex video that I can because I love it. It's one of my favorite books. It's a zombie book, but it's also a love story, and it's kind of weird and gross, but for some reason I love it. And I don't even like zombies. Like, I'm not a zombie person. I don't watch The Walking Dead or any of that stuff, but Warm Bodies, I love it. I love the crap out of this book. It's fantastic. But if you've already read Warm Bodies, then you should read The New Hunger, which is the prequel to Warm Bodies, which was awesome. I read this for the Booktubeathon this year, and it was fabulous. Then if you want more on the fantasy end of things, but it still has, like, monsters and angels and just a bunch of, like, supernaturally paranormal type creatures, I recommend the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy by Laini Taylor. This is about an art student in Prague, and she has been raised by monsters, and she kind of gets caught up in this whole world of crazy things that happen. And I can't really go on beyond that without spoilers, but I'm sure you guys have heard about this. People on BookTube talk about this trilogy all the time. Laini Taylor is a beautiful writer. This is a beautiful trilogy, and I really, really love it. If you also want something that has kind of the same feel, I read The Girl at Midnight last month, and it was really, really fantastic. It has a lot of the same feel as Daughter of Smoke and Bone, and has a lot of the same premises, although I've heard that the future books in this series kind of go away from that and has a very different feel as well. So it's like Daughter of Smoke and Bone, but not like Daughter of Smoke and Bone, although I plan on reading the second book this month, and so I'll let you guys all know how I feel about it. So there are my monthly recommendations for October for the Monster Mash, and books that I think would be really great for October, slash if you want something more paranormal with monster Halloween type creatures in them. And I just really love these books. And also, if you have recommendations for any urban fantasy, please let me know, because I just really love the urban fantasy genre, and I feel like not a whole lot of people on BookTube talk about urban fantasy, although young adult urban fantasy is kind of becoming a more popular thing now, but not really adult urban fantasy a whole lot. So if you've read any good urban fantasies, let me know. Or if you know of other booktubers that talk about urban fantasy, let me know, because I would really love to have other people talk about this genre with and have more recommendations of books to read by these types of authors and this genre. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all later. Bye.